When I hook up my trailer, the truck wants to sag. So I bought the heaviest set that I could find. That's what they look like. They're very dense foam. They replace the factory bump stop. Bump stop, SumoSpring. All right, we're not hooked up. Right down the middle, we are at 38 3/4. Here we are loaded. And let's see what kind of squat we got. We are at 37 7/8. This is the easiest thing to put on. You don't even need to jack up the truck. I have a jack stand down there in the way, just in case. All you have to do is take that bottom plate off and the shackles, and then slide this thing in. So first thing we're going to do is take off the take off this bottom plate. Okay, once you have that off, this bottom plate will shimmy off, and you can take this U-bolt. This U-bolt, you pull the factory bump stop off, set this sucker up in there. Oh, look at that. It actually has a tiny little bit of clearance, so I'm going to have to jack up. I am going to have to jack the truck up like just a 1/2 inch. Okay, shimmy my ass out of here. Yep. All right. Put a little pressure on that. Okay, so they're in the top, they're in the bottom. Put this on just enough so I can start the nuts. Sure that this is hanging nice. This is lined up with the stop up here because it is actually going to be touching. What I'm doing here is trying to get all the nuts on evenly. You can get this bottom plate on crooked if you don't take the time to pay attention to how much of the stud is hanging down to get it on straight. All right, I'm going to look up the torque specs for this and torque it down, but that's all there is to it. That thing is in place. This is back on. Shackles are straight. That was easy. Very, very easy. You can see it's aligned. It looks like it's a little bit forward, but I'm gonna lay it down and see what happens when I compress it. And that lined up perfectly once I lowered it. This is the other side. And if you notice on the first side, I had to use clamps to clamp the U-bolts together to get the bottom plate back on. On this side, that didn't happen. It dropped off really easily and then also went right back on really easily. You can see once you loosen it, this is just a better angle. You can reach in there and get that bump stop off. And once you have that out of the way, the Sumo spring will just go right in. I already have this side jacked up. Put the spring in. I already have it lifted up a little bit, just about a 1/4 inch. Hang these U-bolts over the flanges, line it up. And let's see if this side wants to go back in nicely. Oops, upside down. And that one goes in. Nice, nice, these go in. Yeah, I think we're in pretty good shape. Even though this looks good from underneath the truck, once I lowered it and looked in the wheel well, you could see it wasn't aligned properly. So I had to loosen all of this up, move that Sumo spring forward towards the front of the truck, and then tighten everything up again. So before you torque down your nuts to the right specs, which is 52 by the way, get out, look, make sure it's aligned, and you might experience the same thing. All right, the torque spec on these is 52. All right, both sides done. And it is interesting that they don't really, they touch, but there's no weight put on them. I can move them. See that? It moves. And they don't sit exactly the same either. This one sits a little bit off to the outside, and this one is more centered. And they're not offset or anything. It's the springs, I guess, are just in slightly different places, which it is what it is, you know. I did check to see if they're offset, because that was my first guess, but they are not. Moment of truth. Well, I guess just lifting it off the ground a little bit moved it forward slightly. All right, we got all the tongue weight. This thing is smashed in there. Looks good. And let's see. Let's see where we're at. I mean, I can tell you just from looking at it, it's 38 and a half. Nice. 38 and a half fully loaded. So I was 37 and 7/8. So I picked up over a 1/2 inch of height under load. That's exactly what I wanted. I don't want it to squat at all. Let me show you what I mean. So that's what it looks like hooked up. Nice, right? That 1/2 inch, it just makes a difference. I mean, it looks like it's not loaded, and that's what I was going for. sure it's a little rough. A little bit rough ride, but we'll have to see. I mean, I knew immediately when I stepped on this. I mean, watch, let me see if I can get back far enough. Yeah, watch this. And that's a tongue weight and my 210 pounds. And that's all it moves. There's still some give, but man, it stops the shock right away. Very happy. Let's go look at this other side that isn't sitting exactly the same way. You know, it's a little off right there, but it's 95% in the right spot. And the yellow matches the yellow shock. How do you like that? Just one more thought on these things. I could not stand it when I would take off from a traffic light and the sag got probably 20% worse. I see this happen with other Tacomas where, you know, you're towing somebody or something and you have a heavy load and it just the whole back of the truck squats. It just looks cheap. It looks like it's not a real beefy program. And this has fixed that completely. These things get progressively tighter. So as you hit the gas, they stiffen up even more because they can't compress. And it completely eliminates all that under toe sag and acceleration sag. So nice. Here's what you can expect to see from the outside. Not very much at all. You know, you can't even tell unless you really get in there and look. That's the add a leaf. So I did an add a leaf and that actually worked fine until I lifted the back end an inch with that block, and then it was noticeable. And I think it's because of the front. You know, the front was higher. That was really the problem. Now that the front was higher, the back, even though, you know, it would drop the same amount that it used to, and it looked ridiculous because the front was higher. This is what it looks like underneath. So there's that one. There's that one. You really, I mean, you cannot see it from the back at all. They're too far up in there. And here's this side. And again, you know, I mentioned before, they don't sit exactly the same. And this one actually moves a little bit. And this one is tighter. That goes along with that Tacoma leaning thing. See, this one is tighter. So, as I mentioned, it took care of the stupid leaning. Anyway, all right, well, that is what it looks like. All right, so what does it feel like driving? It's definitely, you can feel every little bump in the back. It feels stiffer. You might be able to see me, you know, I'm on just a regular road here. See, regular road. It's definitely bumpier, but not unbearable. You know, it feels fine. It feels like a truck. When you turn, there's no body roll. That bed does not spin or roll in any way. When you accelerate, it feels stiffer. Like you know, you can definitely feel it. The springs make a difference, or those SumoSprings make a difference. You can feel it. Here's a bump here, and you can just feel it. You know, this has a front lift kit, right? So, or a front leveling kit. There's a good example of just going through across an intersection. There's just no body roll when you turn, and it feels fine. The other thing is, I noticed, whether you realize it or not, when you are loaded with people and the boat, for instance, it squats even more because there's just so much more weight. When you have people in the back seat, it squats because, you know, there's just more weight, right? It doesn't do that anymore. And whether you know it or not, when you're alone in the truck, the Tacomas lean to the driver's side. They all do. If you measure them, sometimes it's a 1/4 inch, sometimes it's a little more, but they all lean. Well, fix that completely. It doesn't lean anymore. So you know, I like them. I'd do it again. I think it's a great addition. If this video, you know, helps you make a buying decision, well, that's super great. And as always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe.